Good morning. Today is August 3rd, and we're not in our same area today. We're actually heading towards the Five Bogs, which is like 10 miles from here from the south, to connect two areas that we're heading south to north today. Last week we kind of went, I don't know, kind of east to south. So we're kind of doing the opposite direction, heading north to kind of tie into two areas. The point being, last week we may have had wood knocks in an area to give potential indication of the presence of them in a given area and pointing out where they may have gone during more humanly active parts of the summer. So we're going to get going and try to get into that area from the north, go heading north and see how that works out. So we're going to hit the trail and we'll see where it goes. Thanks.
Half an hour, 45 minutes. I wasn't really paying attention at the time, but to the into the hike, and we're still heading north. It's getting muggy in here. I expected that though. Bugs, they're there. They're not horrible. A little bit of an op-ed though. Had something happen during the week. I'll leave specifics out, but there seems to be, in the life cycle of things that happen within the community, a cyclic nature of how old BS comes around to try to get a second life and gain new cred amongst newer people to the community. And some of that has happened recently, and people get grumpy when reminders are given that, multiple years ago BS was BS then. It didn't suddenly magically stop being BS now. So the reminder keeps the following from not happening. Those who don't learn from history are in fact doomed to repeat it. So there comes a point, unfortunate though it might be on occasion, when you have to decide between friendship and the value that the truth holds. I find myself in the middle of such a dilemma now, which is unfortunate, but it is, as they say, what it is. So I'll touch more on this later. I'm about to do a drone flyover, I think, and get my first aerial survey in of this overall area. And what was that? I may have just spooked a deer. So we're gonna end this segment for a bit, and we'll revisit this a little bit later, but I want to get the drone in the air. All right, we'll be back in a bit. segment 2 of Trail Talk, or whatever we're calling this, but I have taken a junction that's heading now kind of northeast, and lovely scumpy little stream for you to look at real quick. We are seeing a lot of eastern newts out today. It's all wet in here, so good environment for them. Did an aerial survey of first series of wetlands. Kind of had to settle for a pop-up only because the canopy opening was kind of small, and even though I got up a certain ways, the loss of signal became a factor pretty quick. So in a case like that, it's best to play it safe and not waste your whole day trying to retrieve a drone that tries to do a return to home on you when you have thick enough tree cover that that's going to be a problem. That doesn't look like much, but the truth of the matter is, with the obstacle avoidance, anything that's not about 10 feet out or more kicks that in, and then it won't go any higher. So I had to do a little maneuvering just to get a hole in the opening to get up about 375 feet or so and get a decent pan around of the area. But there's kind of like a peanut-shaped wetland, and then if you go bushwhacking a ways, there's another one beyond that, following, I forget which river, but I could identify it on a map. It's a series of wetlands, kind of daisy-chained one off the other, and we're heading in the direction of more of that, hopefully with more open air, so we can move around a little bit more in the air. I think I remember that one being a little more open, but time will tell. Pretty sure this is the same direction I had it a couple of years ago, but we'll know soon enough. I do know by checking the map there's a couple of larger wetlands north of here, so we're hoping to get an aerial survey of that if there's no activity. Like I said, there may have been activity. Get a better view of that. There you go. Kind of dead center in the middle of nowhere. I'm not going to give the area away, so that if they are about, the two are left in peace, and it doesn't put a monkey wrench, no pun intended, in their behavioral patterns, but we'll see. Hopefully that'll pan out, because we're basically, if I followed this all the way through, I'd come to a junction I was at last week. If I felt like hiking, and it's probably a good 9 or 10 miles. It's a haul to get there, but I mean, it does connect. So doesn't hurt to know the junction points in a system like this, because this is actually a rather large area, so getting lost in here could be a multiple day affair in the right conditions. So getting back to where I was, truth and friendship. I've seen this happen a couple of times, and the sad thing, this is going to sound kind of cold-hearted, but the sad thing is often I've seen loyalty triumph over truth. And I guess there's good and bad in that. You learn your lesson after the fact, and it's a philosophical truth that you tend to learn more from your failures than your successes. But one of these situations did rear its head this last week, and the larger argument really is, the truth has already pretty much been established. This is a well-known situation. I'm not going to go into the details and rehash it, but it's a situation that happened over 5 years ago. It went to court, and the person making claims was, to put it nicely, pummeled in court and lost hugely, and I voiced some disgust this week online, notably on Facebook, where this person is trying to get a speaking engagement at a newer conference and in all likelihood try to stage a comeback. And that's what I was referring to earlier when I said there's a cyclical nature to this kind of thing as I walk through a sea of whatever these little biting things are. These things tend to come in cycles, and every now and then a couple of years will go by and old BS tries to come back and repackage itself as new BS to people that are newer to the scene and probably don't know the history. So yeah, every now and then a reminder of history doesn't hurt, because you're doomed to have this crap keep coming back around. I mean, you have the CGI stuff that Todd Standing put out. People still believe that, which is irritating, because people have done a recreation of one of the CGI heads and it literally is him. I mean, it's just not hard to see that. One example. But people need to be reminded, because if you're ever going to get to an end game in solving this mystery, you got to separate the wheat from the chaff. And Mr. Standing, among others, is the chaff, and part of a kind of a chafing problem, if you'll pardon the pun. So I guess I have a conundrum ahead of me to decide how I'm going to handle that. Also had a couple of interesting conversations this weekend, notably one with a person who is more, I don't know if they're a straight up paranormalist, but they're a little more open to it than I am. And he's making I respect the guy though, because he does have a good head on his shoulders and he's always been diplomatic in his thoughts, which I do appreciate. He was kind of basically lamenting on the limitations of the community as same, because it really isn't a much of a community. It's more of a, hold on, photo-worthy thing here. Sorry. Helps if I get my hand out of the way too. Okay. All right, we're good. Sorry about that. I may edit that part out, but he has a good head on his shoulders, and he was kind of like, you know, the community has a way of shutting down opposing opinions. Now there's some yin and yang in there. The yin being, yeah, if somebody literally does believe what they're espousing, then, you know, all the power to you, First Amendment and all that. The dark side, you have potentially people like the Zorth guy who is literally possibly giving false hope to cancer victims. That accusation's been made. I don't know if it's true or not, but if that is true, then that is definitely not a good thing. That's more cult activity than it is alternative beliefs, even though I'm sure they're trying to pawn it off as that. Another example, but what happened to me this week was similar too, because I was basically intending nothing more than a reminder that this was something that was one of the larger infamies of the 2012 era, and if you just forget it, it's going to happen all over again. Earlier this year in a different place, a friend was, maybe we should forgive and forget with some folks in a certain Facebook group. And I mean, yes, it's Facebook, but the same principles basically apply. There was a big schism between two groups, basically due to one person expecting anywhere he is to be an echo chamber for his opinions, and the other person kind of just wanting everyone to get along, which is a noble desire. But before he even acted to bring these people back in, their, for lack of a better term, their betas of the group basically were already in the group trying to stir the pot, and it's like they're not even here yet, and what you're trying to avoid is already occurring. It's just going to happen all over again. More cyclical stuff. So there comes a point when you make some difficult changes, and the fact is that you just have to, you know, value truth over the same cyclical nonsense, because otherwise you're going to just keep doing the same thing and expecting a different result, which, as we all know, is the definition of insanity. So that's just my random op-ed for the day. I'll end the segment here unless something film-worthy happens. And that's what the gimbal camera is good for. It's basically a video-taking microphone of sorts. So sooner or later I'm going to come up on aerial survey point number 2. Okay, segment 3. So I want to have hands on our way back. We made our way segment here to the wetland, unless something noteworthy happens, to get a flyby over as I walk through this trail. And did a second, a third one in a little bit. We actually did 2 flyovers of this wetland only because there was a lot of details to it, so I wanted to do it fair justice. And this first time I tried the battery on the drone was kind of at the end of a safe to the point of a risky flight because of the amount of juice, and it was, once it gets down near 30%, it wants to do a return to home, and when you're over timber, the results of such a thing can be rather unpredictable. So I would rather leave a window before that happens, because you have to manually turn off return to home. I had enough juice to bring it down manually. It was within line of sight, but I would rather not spend the rest of the day trying to find a damaged drone down in the pine timber somewhere, if it doesn't get caught in a pine bough, in which case you're probably out the drone and a lot of decent video. It started to rain a little bit too, but one of those very passing half-hearted summer shower kind of things. So we're on our way back, and no activity to speak of, but I guess that That leaves where we were inconclusive. Next time we'll allow for, if I need basically, if I could get one of my other guys out here, what we could do is actually, I guess, meet in the middle. Kind of start at opposite ends of the trailheads, meet in the middle, and then figure out whose car is going to drive whom back to the other side. That's an idea. I just got to get the manpower to do it. When you're one person, you can't just, you know, you park your car, you're going back to where you park your car. But it is coming up on the 4th hour of this hike. It's not miserably hot. It's hot, but not like it has been. And we're going to call it a day as soon as we get back to the car. But we're in some good country today, and we're going to call it there. So thanks.